Welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Visit legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com. Good evening and welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight. As the fallout continues over this massive $1.2 trillion spending bill that Joe Biden has now signed, Americans are still wondering what is actually in the bill. We know that it has funded abortion in a variety of respects. We also know that it has given some funding to surgeries, transgender surgeries on minors, allegedly even without parental consent, some of these things. But what is actually in the bill and what should be the pro-life response? Joining me now is Father Frank Pavone, who is the founder of Priests for Life. So, Frank, as you and your organization have had an opportunity, maybe even just a little bit, to go through this massive, 1,000-page spending bill, what have you discovered?
Well, there are a lot of items in it related to abortion. Now, some of them good. There are what we call pro-life protections that Congress has voted on year after year for decades. And things like the Hyde Amendment and things like the Weldon Amendment, protecting conscience for those that don't want to perform abortions, et cetera. So there are pro-life provisions that have been retained in this, but there are a number of other ones that have been removed. Most significantly, the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance Policy, otherwise known as the Mexico City policy. Now, this has to do with entities that promote or provide abortions overseas. Now, here's the problem. This, what just passed, this package that just passed, authorizes what's called PEPFAR. That's the United States Assistance for Mitigating HIV/AIDS in other countries, right? So many of the organizations that receive the money for PEPFAR also promote abortion. And so without that other piece of the puzzle, the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance, without that, then a lot of this money that for all that we know and say, hey, we're helping, reduce AIDS overseas, it's going to actually kill babies overseas. And this is one of the many problems in this package dealing with abortion. And this is completely the responsibility of the Biden administration. They didn't have to do this. Biden is the one who rescinded that pro-life provision to keep our money from funding abortion overseas. But no, he didn't want that in there. This is an abortion-loving administration, unfortunately.
Well, see, and without understanding, kind of that other part of this, that a lot of those organizations that get the funding for something like, the HIV, issues that are in other countries, but it actually goes toward funding abortion. The average American looking at this spending bill would just gloss over some of those provisions and say, oh, well, that goes, toward good medical actual health care, which is what, of course, the Democrats term wrongly abortion. So I mean, this is just so frustrating that it seems like the Democrats can put things into spending bills like this that really just are glossed over by the average American, unless we have someone like you that is here to explain it for us.
Well, Jenna, I mean, it's so challenging. I mean, even for us who, like myself, other pro-life leaders, that we're focused on this one issue of abortion full time, it's hard for us to even keep up with this. I mean, there are so many. I mean, there are dozens. I gave one example. There are dozens and dozens of others where these little, hard to find provisions, that were in fact, in legislation that the Republican House voted for, and Republican Congresses in the past have voted for, and have been removed, often stealthily removed. And so you don't know about it until you take a fine-tooth comb and go through thousands of pages of wording. But I mean, the bottom line, to really sum it up in a very simple way, when you've got a Democrat administration and when you've got a Democrat Congress, or if you have any amendment brought forth by Democrats, you are going to have blood money flowing from our taxpayer dollars into the abortion industry, either domestically or internationally. And domestically, there are 2 facilities in the Northeast, by the way, that were also funded by this, that do abortions up to 22 and 23 weeks into pregnancy. And they got millions of dollars of funding from this package as well.
This is totally nauseating. And yet, we saw how this entire spending package was passed within days, and even members of Congress didn't get to read it before they passed it or had to vote on it, much less the American people. And so, as an organization like Priests for Life, that your purpose and mission is to protect life, and you have a lot of activity on Capitol Hill trying to reach members of Congress to not fund some of these ridiculous, nauseating priorities. What should be the message for pro-life organizations when you have things like this that are passed without even knowing what's in it?
Yeah, first of all, the leaders themselves and the organizations need to take the time and trouble to synthesize, to summarize these points. Then we all help one another. So, organizations will pass along talking points and we'll help each other get it out to the public. So, but we've got to be telling people about these things, number one. Number two, all the people who are involved in, and I'm sure many of our listeners are involved in and connected with different pro-life organizations, need to be taking that information and communicating with their members of Congress. When I talk to members of Congress about priorities, they often will say to me, hey, listen, we're judging priorities based on, whether we're hearing about these issues or not from our constituents. And so pro-life constituents, let your members of Congress know that you're paying attention to these things. Jenna, one of the things, too, is a lot of times we figure let's say we have a very pro-life representative in our district, right? We might think, oh, I don't have to talk to him or her about abortion because they're already on our side. But the point is not to persuade them. The point is to give them some math. In other words, we're not calling them to say, hey, you're already pro-life, so I don't have to talk to you, or why don't you be more pro-life? What we're saying to them is, hey, I paid attention to this. You've got my support on that. And this way here, when they have their debates with their colleagues, they can say, hey, I heard from 5,000 or 10,000 of my constituents about this specific point. That's what we need to empower them to be able to say.
Yes, so well said. And I think that it's almost like conservatives are very good at complaining about things, but then when it actually comes to doing something as simple as picking up the phone and calling their member of Congress, which they should be doing, whether they're pro-life or pro-abortion, it should
Yeah.
be an essential that we get a hold of our member of Congress, that we are engaged, because this is part of the stewardship of the blessing of liberty, Frank Pavone, that we actually get to participate in our government, and we should be requiring our members of Congress to actually work for us and put forward the priorities that we genuinely support, rather than them going, well, I guess this is just up to me because I'm not really hearing from any of my constituents. So really well said. We'll be back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. A kindergarten teacher in Oakland, California, is taking legal action after the school district is trying to force her to comply with the kindergarten students' quote unquote preferred pronouns. This is absolutely ridiculous and just is making a mockery of the entire DEI and woke agenda that a school teacher for kindergarten would actually be compelled to participate in the fiction and the delusion that is preferred pronouns. So the legal group We The Patriots is taking on her case, and Brian Festa is one of the co-founders, and he joins me now. So Brian, I hope that you win this case. It should be a slam dunk.
It should be. Nothing seems to be a slam dunk in California, though, Jenna. This is Oakland, all right? And even for Oakland, though, this surprised me. When Mirella first contacted us, it was actually about a year and a half ago when this all started. But at that time, she wasn't being terminated. She hadn't been disciplined yet. They were just threatening it. So I told her, I said, well, listen, we can't really do anything, as you know, until there's been some sort of harm to you. We can't, file a lawsuit just because they're threatening they might do something at some point in the future. You still have your job. Everything's fine for now. But then I think it was December, she contacted us again and said, well, Brian, they've done it. They've placed me on leave without pay. They're suspending me, and they're putting me forward to a termination hearing next, which is the last step. As you know, public school teachers are usually in a teachers union, and there's a process they have to go through before they terminate someone's employment. It's not like the corporate world. They don't just tell you to pack up and go that day. So now she's at the final stages. They've suspended her without pay, and they're moving forward to terminate her. So now we do have what's called an adverse employment action under Title VII and under California law. It's quite humorous that they cited her as violating California Education Code 220, which states that you cannot discriminate against any person in a school on the basis of gender identity. But what does it also say? If you read about 2 lines down, it also says you can't discriminate on the basis of one's religious beliefs in a school. And that's exactly what the school is doing. So Mirella Ramirez was told by her bosses that she had a student in her class, a female student, a 5-year-old. This is kindergarten. We're talking about a 5-year-old female student who was transitioning with the full support of her parents to a male. And because she's transitioning to a male, Mirella would be forced now to start referring to the girl as a boy and using a boy's name and male pronouns. The problem for that is twofold. Number one, Mirella is a devout Catholic who is 100% against gender transition, believes, as you and I do, that God created only 2 sexes, male and female, created he, them. That's from Genesis, folks. It's actually in there twice. And she doesn't believe that she can't in any way participate or approve of a child or anyone transitioning from one gender to the next. Now, listen, what people do as adults, we don't even have any control over that. That's between them and God. Ultimately, we can minister to them, but we don't have control over that. But when it comes to a child that's been put under your charge, now you're a teacher. You're supposed to be teaching them. All right. The teacher's duty is, we've always been told that teaching is a noble profession, right? You're charged with educating the youth. And part of that is, in Mirella's view, educating right from wrong. Not to necessarily impose her religious beliefs on any children, but certainly she can't participate in the teaching of evil to children. What she believes and what I believe is evil. So they told her, you have to do it or you're going to be fired. And unfortunately, they did not budge. Mirella suggested several alternatives. The other problem, I said it's twofold, is the fact that it's a dual immersion class. So Mirella is a Hispanic woman and teaches both Spanish and English in that classroom. So in order for her to do this, as you know, Spanish, it's not just pronouns that are masculine or feminine. It's all these words, all other kinds of nouns as well, adjectives, everything that have to be changed based on gender.
Mm-hmm.
So it would get extremely confusing for her to do that in the classroom. It was really ridiculous and not really practical what they were asking her to do.
Well, Brian, I hope that you are successful in this lawsuit, but we're seeing not just in this instance, but I think a myriad circumstances that are similarly situated where you see the left that is trying to compel Christians, Catholics, people who have devout and sincere religious beliefs to participate in their religion, which is this Marxist nonsense that is queer theory. And so, what should the law reflect in terms of the rights of American citizens to say, I decline to participate in this nonsense? You can't forcibly compel me to speak against my sincerely held religious beliefs.
So Title VII, as I already mentioned, and as you know, applies to all employers. Okay, private, public, it doesn't matter. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, sex, religion, and the Supreme Court has even held on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. Now, we can argue about whether it actually says that. It actually doesn't. But
it doesn't. I
Justice
agree.
Gorsuch
Bostock was bad, but yeah.
yeah, Justice Gorsuch says that sex includes sexual orientation, gender identity. I don't agree that it does, but that was the Supreme Court's holding in that case. But it definitely says religion in there. All right, religion, religious belief, and in some state statutes it says creed. California has a state statute that also protects against religious discrimination in the workplace. But there's another layer. Because the Oakland Unified School District is a public school district, they are bound by the First Amendment via the 14th Amendment. As you know, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, are applied to the states through the 14th Amendment. All right. And so they are bound to obey the First Amendment, which protects against states or the federal government or any local government from discriminating against individuals on the basis of their religious beliefs. Well, firing someone because they refuse to violate their sincerely held religious beliefs sure seems like discriminating against someone, infringing on their freedom of religion. So we have a First Amendment violation very clearly here, I think, and all states should take note of this. This case, Jenna, I believe is actually one of the most important cases in the country because yes, the cases on behalf of parents fighting back. We need more of those cases. We need parents speaking up at school board meetings, all of that.
100%. And we got to end it there, Brian Festa, but go to wethepatriots.com to donate and support this great organization that takes up these cases like Morella's. We'll be right back. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. So as the border crisis continues to rage and Americans are wondering what is going to be the outcome of the Texas standoff versus the federal government, how will the Supreme Court parse some of these issues with now allowing what is the Texas Bill 4 to be enforced at the border? CBS had a very interesting interview with the Border Patrol chief who actually gave his opinions and thoughts about what needs to be done on the border. Watch this clip.
I think we need to take a look at the asylum laws and make it where only people that are have a legitimate claim, can claim asylum. I think that we need to be able to enforce the immigration laws that are on the books and hold people accountable whenever they choose to break the laws. I think that
you're talking about tougher policies.
Yes, simply to deter the desire to come across at a point other than the port of entry. If there's no motivation to do it the right way, and the right way is causing people to have to wait a little bit longer, well, naturally they're going to choose to come between the ports of entry. We need to take that off the table and make sure everybody's coming through the front door, through the port of entry, and that allows us to get back out to the business of securing the border.
Josiah O'Neil is the author of the book Defining Truth and joins me now. So, Josiah, is the Border Patrol chief right?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we're seeing this as a growing problem here in our country, but it's a global issue, really. And I think that what's important for Americans to understand is that the culture war has real impacts with national security. And I know that seems far-fetched to those who aren't paying attention, but ideas have consequences is what I'm getting at. And this didn't just erupt overnight. We're not simply dealing with immigration. We're dealing with a national security issue that is evolved from a mindset that's being propagated in our culture that national identity doesn't matter and that the Christian Judaic values of our past are somehow rotten and need to be dealt with. And this can be overcome by flooding our system, et cetera. So it's a growing problem that we're going to have to reconcile with soon.
Yeah, really well said. And I couldn't agree more because, if we frame this as just an illegal immigration crisis and we talk about the laws, I mean, the Democrats don't care about laws, and they're even trying to fund certain things like, the Senate voting for the Biden administration to continue flying over illegals. And he's using the loophole in immigration law in order to do that. And if we frame this rightly, I think, as a national security crisis and a sovereignty issue and an issue also of federalism and of state sovereignty, then we are actually getting to the heart of conservative values and the fundamental difference between the right and the left. And so I think that the right does need to do a better job of messaging what our actual values are, because the Democrats for a long time, Josiah, have said, well, don't you care about humanitarianism? Don't you care about the people, who are these poor little refugees from Haiti and all of this? And yet, my response to that is humanitarianism maybe is the job of, some conservative charities or, the Red Cross, but that's not the duty, the obligation, or any of the specific limited powers of government.
Absolutely. Well, as you know correctly, the left has they've masterfully framed the argument, and we have allowed our opposition to define who we are, and we're playing on their terms. This is the same thing we do in politics, but if you're familiar with a legal argument, it's the same concept. They frame the argument the way they want the jury to see it. And the jury in this case is the American people. And while they tout the wonders of the left's care for human beings, simultaneously, they are admitting the great human travesties that their policies are creating. I mean, just recently, FBI Director Wray admits that human trafficking groups have known ties to ISIS. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. As you may know, I worked for the government for a long time, and I worked a lot of national security cases related to the government. People in America have no idea how bad it is. I would say that even those who are paying attention. Not only do we have criminals, we have terrorist threats, we have foreign nation state threats like intelligence issues from China and the IRGC. The list goes on and on and on. And the left is well aware that this is happening. They know this. Their own people tell them, as Wray recently testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee. But they continue to propagate the idea that speaking out against open borders is racist, et cetera. They continue to do that because it solidifies their power move, politically speaking. So they're sacrificing the American people for the sake of winning elections. It's absolutely disgusting.
It is, and it's completely against the U.S. Constitution. It's against the oath of office. It's against anything rational, just to put it very mildly. And so, with your expertise and experience in national security, there have been a lot of conservative commentators and people who are very concerned that, especially before the 2024 election, there may be another big terrorist incident, even potentially domestically here in the United States. Is that something you're concerned about as well?
I think anyone who's been paying attention should be concerned about that. And as we just discussed, even the left is concerned about that. They know it. And they try to balance. It's this balancing act they're always doing between wanting to win elections and being honest with the American people. Everyone in the intelligence community is concerned about this because we have evidence of it over and over again. It seems like you can't go a week without finding that some terrorist is arrested at the border, and they're gloating about how easy it is to cross over into our country. Of course, we recently had the attacks at the mall in Russia. I want people to understand that these groups wanting to harm the West, they don't care about your politics. They don't care about the groups parading for Palestine. What they want to see is death and destruction because that is their method of obtaining more control. And we should be concerned because it's happened here before. And the situation that we're currently in, as far as controlling the flow of terrorist cells, et cetera, is much worse currently than it was 20 plus years ago when 9/11 happened. So it's a great concern. And I think those on the left know this as well, because there's going to be a reckoning. When something does occur, all of us who have been sounding the alarm and raising the flags are going to turn, and we'll know exactly who to hold responsible for what they've done. And it'll be someone's loved one lost. And it's just really sad, even, as we discussed it, it's amazing that it continues to occur.
It really is. And the thing that's wild to me about this is that the Democrats have families, they have a vested interest in this country surviving and being moral good. I mean, and yet they are, as you mentioned, propagating all of these other issues that are tearing down our country. And it seems to me that anyone who is just reasonable would go against a lot of these policies that they're putting forward. And I really don't trust the Biden administration that they'll be able to handle some of these national security issues. But Josiah O'Neil, we got to leave it there. His book, Defining Truth. And we'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. Well, if you're like every reasonable, common sense person, you can tell the difference between, right and wrong, good and evil, and also something beautiful versus something ugly. And in a new piece from the Blaze Media, Auron Macintyre writes this: Why the Left Fears Beauty. The key to cultural revolution is to sever the continuity between the past and the present. So Auron Macintyre from The Blaze joins me now. And Auron, I think everybody rightly so, and it's not meant to be just pejorative, but an observation. It seems like the left, especially all of these queer theory enthusiasts, it seems like they are trying purposefully to be as vulgar and gross and ugly as possible. Is that part of the agenda?
Absolutely. There's a reaction by the left against the beauty standards, right? We hear this all the time. How can you make me conform to this? How can you have an aspiration of this? And we see this reflected in every walk of society. Recently, a museum run by Cambridge put a trigger warning on a landscape painting, saying that paintings of the British countryside could spawn dark nationalist feelings. We have to be worried about the natural beauty of the countryside because it may make us proud of our nation. It might make us care and be patriotic about who we are.
Oh no. Oh no. How could that possibly happen? And let's fight the real fights, which are, against paintings. But it goes back though to this whole idea of beauty. It used to be that in art, in culture, there was a purposeful design. I mean, even architecture, right? For example, like we have and there's such a great account on X, formerly known as Twitter, Cultural Critic, and I don't know if you follow that one, but this account's like full point is to show how historic buildings used to be beautiful, not just utilitarian in design. It used to be that we were trying to evoke beauty wherever we could. And that was part of our worship of God, our creator, because God made the world beautiful. And some of our designs then as human beings being made in the image of God to likewise create, we should reflect that design and the nature of God's character to likewise evoke beauty. And so one of the things that I think of the left and their fear of beauty is that beauty intentionally evokes God and recognizes our creator and our designer. And it seems like they're intentionally rebelling against that and trying purposefully to excise God from society.
I think that's exactly right. I think that this is just a process of modernity. Even as a evangelical Christian, I remember many times people criticizing cathedrals and opulent buildings, saying that these things were ostentatious and why don't we just kind of gather in a shopping mall and give to the poor. And of course, you need to be careful and make sure that you are doing, spending God's money correctly and taking care of your society. But there is a real and good thing about building beautiful buildings, about turning your architecture, the space around you, into something beautiful. It does point us upward. It gives us reverence. It makes us care about our day-to-day interactions and instills us with an understanding of the divine. And I think it really is an impact in changing that standard around us. And I think that has allowed progressivism take hold in many areas. They want to get rid of all of those old buildings, the few buildings we still have that evoke that divine inspiration. They don't want people walking down the street looking up and seeing these amazing artworks, these amazing pieces that change us and stir our soul. Instead, they want us all stuck in kind of this bland, brutalist, individualist mire that goes ahead and gives, I think, the ground in which progressivism blossoms.
And your headline there was talking about continuity with the past, and as we're talking, it actually, some of the dots sort of connected with me, that because I've wondered why some of these climate activists, for example, are going and throwing tomato soup on paintings. It's like, what does that have anything to do with climate activism, other than maybe just getting attention? But it seems like all of these leftist propositions are intentionally trying to destroy history. They're trying to destroy beauty. And so is that even an implicit MO of climate activists that are so progressive and leftist that even in their attempt to draw attention to their issue, they're still participating in tearing down beauty?
Yeah, the left is creating a cultural revolution. I think we all recognize that. And during that cultural revolution, they're creating a smaller, uglier, nastier world. That's why we're all responding to what's happening the way that we are now. And the left, of course, needs to get rid of all these vestiges of the past that link us to that history that shows us beauty that is outside of that small leftist world view. The world used to be bigger. The world used to be more, used to be sacralized. It used to have more evidence of the divine in our everyday. And that chain between the past and the current day is what informs our culture and allows us to continue that tradition and bring that beauty into our modern lives. But if you want to have a cultural revolution, if you want to fundamentally transform America, change its values, change its backgrounds, its traditions, its history, what do you need to do? You need to rip up those roots. You need to cover up those paintings. You need to destroy them, tear down the statues, knock down the buildings. Everything that used to connect you to the beauty of the past must be destroyed, so no one recognizes the kind of ugly, plastic, small world you're turning the modern day into.
So, Auron, what should be the conservative and particularly the evangelical Christian response as well? Because, often I think we've kind of been tacit participants in this. I mean, when I think of most evangelical church buildings that are built, for example, I mean, they are built to be more utilitarian and more auditorium concert style than they are to be houses of worship and evoking that beauty that we do hearken back to, and not necessarily that. Yeah, I mean, evangelical is of course different than Catholic, but at the same time, when I I've gone to Europe and I've gone to some of these cathedrals. I mean, it truly is awe-inspiring, and you do feel closer to the divine and understanding the creator through the beautiful buildings that you are in. And so what role and responsibility do we have to reject this sort of utilitarian thinking?
I think we have to return to the idea of beauty as a value. We need to understand it as a revivification of the spiritual. And if we can go ahead and reconnect the things around us to beauty, then we can go ahead and reconnect our world to God. I think it's important for us to go ahead and start beautifying our churches, of course, but also our communities. Build new statues. When we look to construction, look to things that will go ahead and uplift us. Take time to create public spaces that will go ahead and inspire people. Go ahead and invest and patronize art that is glorifying to God and draws us closer, not just ugly modern art that obviously many times goes out of its way to denigrate God. I think that we can be patrons of the arts. We can be those that build great works. We can be those that go ahead and improve our communities through that beauty.
Yeah, and we'll have to leave it there, but Oren, so well said. And it used to be that Christians historically were the art creators. We were the best artists, the best sculptors, the best painters. We need to get back to that. So we'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Well, just like the reports that the left and NBC canceled Ronna McDaniel from being a contributor just because they didn't agree with her perspectives and stuff she had to say, now the left is consistently trying to cancel conservatives, particularly on college campuses. And this post came from X from the YAF. Which is the Young Americans Foundation. And it's ironic. Hamas supporting students complain that Lieutenant Colonel Allen West is a, quote, pro-cop transphobe ahead of YAF lecture. So this is yet more cancel culture, but let's bring in the Lieutenant Colonel himself, Allen West, who is now the Republican chairman of Dallas. And we congratulate you for that. But what exactly happened here? I mean, what are they even possibly suggesting?
Well, it's very interesting. These people represent the true essence and definition of fascism. If you present a thought, perspective, or insight that is dissenting from what they believe, they don't want you to have the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, because they believe that they should be able to adjudicate what is accepted speech. So there was a group of individuals there at St. Louis University, and I've spoken there before and ran into kind of the exact same thing. They wanted to have the cancellation of me coming to speak about the Israel-Hamas conflict there at St. Louis University. And I would think that a former member of the United States military that served in the Middle East and also a former member of Congress would be welcome to come on a campus and talk about what is going on in the Hamas-Israel conflict. But instead, I was called, the bigot, the transphobe, homophobe, disophobe, dataphobe, every kind of phobe in the world. But they tried to cancel the event. The event went on, so I spoke there Tuesday evening, and it started out about 5 or 10 minutes into it. One of the young black men, I figured he was the leader of the group, stood up and started shouting that I was a bigot, and they went into their chants, and he shouted that I needed to leave the campus right now, and I just looked at him with a smile and said, I'm not leaving, but I think you're going to be escorted out of this room. And of course, they were escorted out of the lecture room, and I continued on.
Well, good for you and for not backing down to this. But, we're seeing increasing instances like this where leftist student groups will come and just try to shut down anyone that is conservative or that they think that they may disagree with. What kind of environment are these college administrators fostering when they allow for something like this? I mean, at least, the students were removed and you were able to continue. At least they didn't shut you down and say, oh, you can't come to campus because, some of our students disagree with you. But at the same time, I mean, isn't a college campus and academia literally the best place for differences in ideas and a clash of ideology?
Well, that's what you're supposed to have. I mean, that's part of the intellectual rigor and development that you would think our young people would want. But I guess the culture of the participation trophy has blossomed into this thing where they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to feel as though what they believe in or what they have accepted is threatened. And they don't want to have the open debate about it. They just want to disrupt. And the interesting thing when I talk to the college Republicans there and the YAF members, when they have these leftist liberal speakers come onto campus, there's no complaint from the conservative students. They believe that freedom of speech and freedom of expression. But it is only when you have those conservative speakers, or like I said, those thoughts that are dissenting from the leftist Marxist ideological mindset. And I think what these colleges and universities are doing is an injustice to these young people to have them believe that the world is all about one single thought or just one single mindset, and you can shut down anyone else that does not believe and accept what you believe in. That's not how the world operates, and a lot of these young people are going to get a rude awakening once they graduate.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate, and you're absolutely right that conservatives are okay with freedom of
Hmm.
speech and freedom of expression because we know that why we believe in the values and the ideas that we do. And so we're willing to go into environments like this and actually confront the speakers respectfully and challenge their ideas, not challenge their presence. And I think that
Yeah.
is a really key difference here. And you don't see the same thing with the left. They just want to shut down any of these speakers. So how did this end in terms of YAF and your presence there? I mean, was there anything else that happened in terms of contact with the administration or anything with these students that were disruptive besides being escorted out?
Well, I will tell you that there was a good presence of the law enforcement that was there, the campus police that were there, and I think that that had a lot to do with the fact that these individuals understood that they weren't going to be able to disrupt the proceedings. And of course, once they left, I mean, we continued on and we talked a historical perspective of what has happened, in the Middle East and some of the key players that have brought us to the rise of Islamic terrorism. And of course, when you look at what just happened in Moscow with ISIS coming back, and I related that to the debacle in Afghanistan. And of course, being here in Texas, I talked about the sincere concerns we have about a terrorist attack and event here in the United States of America. So I think the young people that stayed and remained, they got illuminated. I challenged them to think about things, and I gave them some individuals and some things to look up and read upon. And that's what I tried to get them to understand. That's the informal part of your education here on a college and university campus. But sadly, those who thought that they could just stand and yell and scream, they don't get that same opportunity. They left just as dumb as they were when they came in.
Yeah, isn't it so sad? And even as a Christian, I mean, I always want to learn more about other worldviews, so that I can pinpoint why they're false. I mean, if nothing else, it's like I know that that's not going to convince me away from my faith, for example, and I know that other philosophies of economics, for example, aren't going to convince me away from capitalism. But I want to know what other people think so that we can have a healthy debate, and so that you don't have kind of this straw man mentality of saying, well, this is what I think you are probably standing for, and this is how then I'm going to attack it, when that's not really the argument that's presented. So you would think that students would actually want to know what you're saying so that they can rebut it. But obviously, that's not the case. But in just the last minute that I have with you, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, for the students that did stay, were you encouraged at least that there were some that are intellectually honest, and we can have hope in the next generation?
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy being one of the speakers for YAF, Young America's Foundation, and going to these colleges and university campuses because we need to support and encourage these young people who are standing up against the administration, their teachers, their peers, and they're holding on to their principles and values. So yes, it was a very good evening, and a lot of them came up and said, a lot of the things that you brought up to us did not understand, and now we see the importance of studying history to look for
That's
those
so
trends
great.
or those indicators.
Yeah, and that's exactly the purpose of why YAF has these speakers. So, Alan West, thanks so much for all the time we have for Jenna Ellis tonight.